thing because like I know clip
Hi folks, we're going to get going now. So I'm Jason Pramus, I'm the editor of Open Media Boston, I'm a professor here at Lesley, and I'm pleased to welcome you all to the third Digital Media Conference, Freedom and Unfreedom in the Digital Age.
Our facilitator this evening for our opening plenary is John Marshall. He has been a Black community activist, organizer, and educator for over 51 years. His work has included being the Deputy Director of the National Association to Abolish Prisons and consulting on the creation of education and work release programs with John O'Boone, the first Black state corrections administrator in the United States. With a Skype presentation from our brother Ibrahim Abdul Mateen, who is a writer and for over a decade has been a passionate voice for the planet and its people. Ibrahim is a former sustainability policy advisor to New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
And as an African American, I assume that people fear me. That notion of that there's a social agreement that somebody has to be feared goes to this big idea around scarcity.
I'm going to open by telling a joke because I like jokes. NSA walks into a bar, orders a beer. Bartender says, foreign or domestic? NSA says, what's the difference? That I actually sort of disagree with something that Ibrahim said. You know, he was saying that we're not really sure why the government wants this information or what they're doing with it. I think it's pretty clear why they want all of the information about everybody. It's to control us and to maintain the status quo in service of wealthy corporations and the few people at the top who hold a lot of economic and political power. In a democracy, in a democratic society, we the people should know almost everything about the government. You know, we pay for it after all. Supposedly it's a democratic society. The government should know almost nothing about us. Just an incredible amount of state secrecy. The ACLU has been in court repeatedly to try to challenge a lot of these surveillance programs. The government says one of two things, basically. The first is you don't even have a right to be in the court because you can't prove that you were spied on. And the other problem is anytime the government says to a judge, this matter concerns national security, judges pretty much go along with it and agree.
I want to tell you how the long arm of the law actually puts people into what you call the mass incarceration machine. All right, starting off, it starts off with your local police department, one who has a police officer. That individual then arrests someone. That arrested individual gets arraigned, right? He goes to an arraignment, which then triggers a CORI, which is the Criminal History Systems Board database, where he will actually have a computer information tag that is put on him. I call it digitally tagging human beings for the wrong purpose.
One thing I'd like to say is Hakeem is absolutely right. I don't know how many other people in this room have gone through that system, but I've gone all the way through that system, all the way into federal maximum security prison and back out, and that is not a fun system. I don't know how many of you know about John McAfee, but he is someone who started an antivirus company for computers a while ago. Last year he was in Belize and he was being framed for murder because he wasn't willing to bribe the government. I was surrounded by people when my phone rang, and it was one of the FBI agents who loves to interrogate me whenever anyone does a computer crime in this state. And he said the strangest thing about how they had heard that I was talking to John McAfee while he was trying to flee, and that he was a US citizen, that he had not broken any laws in this country, and that if I was scared for any reason about communicating with him, I shouldn't be. And this was about as close as they could get to telling me to help him as was possible by their, rules, I'm sure. But the call came 45 minutes after I got off the phone with him.
But I wanted to go back actually to something that Ibrahim started with, which is that this is really about needing to fear somebody. And if the immigration system is about anything, especially the enforcement part of the immigration system, it's about this is who you need to fear. Essentially, the federal government decided as part of the war on drugs that they could go into a criminal court and say, this is an immigrant that we want you to hold. Whether or not you think this person is deserving of bail, we want you to hold them for us, right? And now there's a lot of challenges to this because states are starting to realize that they can actually say no. But for a long time, states just said, okay, if the feds want them, we're just gonna keep them.
Because for some reason, it likes to overheat a whole lot when I'm talking about things with people that I shouldn't be, I guess. And usually right after my phone gets that hot and starts to hurt, I have to set it down, and then, I get talked to by them about the various things that I've been doing that they don't like. So I have to assume that, they have this, and every time I switch phones, it happens. It doesn't matter what model, make, anything. My battery life, whenever I start having those phone calls, drops from the 6 to 7 hours to about 1.
But I was talking to people on the subway earlier today about all the surveillance cameras that are around, and I got comments like, I think it's a good thing. The more the better. It's for people's safety, for sure. It's not a problem. Nobody even the slightest concern. They'll interrupt me to say that they love it so much. So what's to be done about public perception of this whole thing?
I can address that. I mean, first of all, surveillance cameras are a tricky issue. There's a lot of misinformation about surveillance cameras. Most people don't know, for example, that there's hardly any evidence to suggest that surveillance cameras have any impact on violent crime, serious crimes.
Let's also look at the fact that Hurricane Katrina took place, right? Where were the cameras in Hurricane Katrina? Where were the security? Where was all of the NSA surveillance and everything when there were bloated, floating bodies passing by, and there were helicopters with cameras?
I have most of the press that print anything related to what I care about. I have their cell phones on here, I have their personal and their work emails at home because I've been just working that beat. And when they print something I don't like, I respond. And a lot of times I can get updates to articles, I can get changes to headlines. I get, weekly I get articles changed.
We will email you and ask you to please call your representatives to support the USA Freedom Act. Make the call. It takes about 3 minutes. It sounds stupid, but Representative Justin Amash, somebody said to him, what really makes a difference in DC? And he said, calling us. I mean, it really does. When the phones are ringing off the hook about something, they actually pay attention.
Because we've been spending $2 billion a year on enforcement for years. It does not stop anybody from coming to the US if they want to come.
I want to thank our speakers.